Where Fairies Live. Not long ago, in a small town, there lived a girl named Eileen. She was very fond of fantasy stories, as she loved creatures from other worlds where magic existed. Her favorite readings came from the books of fairies. She had read many of them and never got tired. Each story came with a unique adventure that the girl loved to experience. Everything changed one day when Eileen went to the city library. The girl knew every corner, every shelf, and the location of all book genres. But that day, she noticed a small door she had never seen before, hidden behind a big table. Curiosity led Eileen to duck under the table to try to reach the small door, and to her delight, it opened easily. The other side of the door was full of dust, and there was only one thing there, a big old book. Eileen took it, and coming out from under the table, she sat down to check her discovery. She brushed the dust off the cover of the book, and suddenly the book became smaller, paperback, and the cover became new. It read, "Where Fairies Live." Eileen, still surprised, felt that she should take it home, so she borrowed it from the library without any problem. At dusk, and already at home, the girl decided to start reading the book, and just when she opened it, it returned to its original size. Eileen clapped her hands with joy and wanted to read it immediately, but to her surprise, there was nothing to read. She only found pictures. The drawings were beautifully done and depicted little magical creatures resembling tiny lotus flower buds. "They are fairies!" Eileen exclaimed with great joy. Something strange happened at that moment. The figure of one of the fairies in the book began to move, and getting up, she landed on top of the book's pages and smiled at the girl. Eileen couldn't believe what was happening. Her favorite magical creature was there, in front of her, and it was real. "Hello, my girl. My name is Tanri," said the fairy solemnly. "I am one of the fairies who guards the children who believe in us most fervently." Eileen couldn't find the words to express all the emotions she was currently experiencing. The fairy smiled, and, floating towards the girl, kissed her on the forehead, making Eileen feel peace and tranquility. "Are you real, or is it just my imagination?" Eileen asked. "Yes, and yes," Tanri answered, smiling. That night, the fairy and the girl talked for a long time about many fantastic topics. Eileen wanted to know everything about the world of fairies, and Tanri, with great joy, told her many wonderful things. Eileen began to feel tired, and she wanted to sleep. It was actually late at night. Tanri spun in the air just above the girl, and a few small drops of a green liquid that smelled of freshness fell on Eileen's head. And with great interest, Eileen asked, "What is this that smells so delicious?" "They are drops from the Lake of Dreams. They will help you sleep peacefully and protect your dreams from any nightmare." "Will you be here when I wake up?" the girl asked with a touch of sadness. "I must return to my world through the book, but I can return to keep you company whenever you need me to. All you have to do is open the book and wish it." Eileen smiled, and lying down, little by little, she fell asleep. Tanri smiled when she saw how peacefully the girl was sleeping. Then she flew over to the book, disappearing instantly. She left a faint scent of fruit in the air, which made Eileen smile in her sleep. The book became the paperback version again. The next night, Eileen opened the book again, and as it transformed into its big version, Tanri appeared in front of her. This time, she brought beautiful fruits, similar to apples, but they tasted like plums. Eileen ate one and felt her fears disappear. "Thank you for these delicious fruits, Tanri," Eileen exclaimed, and some of the juice dripped from the corner of her mouth, making them both laugh out loud. Every night, Tanri visited Eileen, and they had the most wonderful time because there were always some interesting questions that the girl asked the fairy, and she answered them with great relish. One night, after having a good time together, Tanri returned to her own world. Upon piercing the portal in the book, she appeared in her land. The green mountains stood out in the distance, while a majestic sun shone high in the sky. Hundreds of magical creatures were walking around the place with absolute happiness. Tanri headed for her home, a small cave that was very close to the Lake of Dreams. As she passed by the lake, she met her good friend Bibu, a beautiful white peacock. His wings had silver spots which gleamed in the sun's rays. Tanri and Bibu chatted happily for a while. "It's been a long time since I've seen you so happy, Tanri." "I know. It is because recently a girl from the world of humans invoked me, and now we are friends." "That is such wonderful news. You fairies have been invoked very few times lately." "I hadn't visited that world for some years. The children that live there don't believe in us as they used to. But never mind, that has changed a bit. With at least one of them believing in us, everything will be fine." Saying goodbye to her friend, Tanri entered her house. She lay down to sleep, eager for Eileen's call. That night, nothing happened. Tanri waited and waited, but in the end, she had to continue with her daily routine, visiting her friends and collecting fruits to share with whoever needed them. The next day, nothing happened either. "This is strange," Tanri thought, sitting on the edge of a waterfall, watching the beautiful moon shining like a gem. "What is wrong with you, dear friend?" the moon asked her. "You look sad." "Yes, I am somewhat sad. One of my friends from the human world, a lovely girl named Eileen, has invoked me no more. I'm worried that something bad happened to her and that I wasn't there to help her." "Is there any way you can go visit her?" "I do not think so. She is the only one in that world who has invoked me. Many other children from other worlds still call us frequently, but we hardly receive calls from Earth anymore." The moon understood Tanri's concern, and after thinking about it for a moment, he asked, "Do you remember Tompi, the jumping toad?" "Yes, I do. I haven't heard from him for a few years. He has not often come to these lands." "Well, he still visits the human world frequently. Perhaps you can enter again through his portal." Tanri's heart began to beat with joy. That was a great idea. Tanri blew the moon a little kiss and said, "Thank you for your wonderful idea." "You're welcome, my little friend. Now go. Maybe your friend Eileen needs you." With a lot of enthusiasm, Tanri flew to the land of the toads to ask her friend Tompi for help. She flew over meadows of sunflowers and over honey lagoons, where huge dancing mosquitoes enjoyed dancing to a musical piece performed by the elves with their magic instruments, making anyone who listened to them feel happy. Finally, Tanri reached the stream where Tompi lived, and to her delight, the toad was reclining in his little hammock, reading a little book. Upon landing, the fairy greeted him. "Good evening, dear friend. How have you been? We haven't heard from you in a long time." "Hello, my friend." Tompi got up and came over to greet her. "I'm delighted to see you again. I'm sorry I didn't visit you more. I've been pretty busy. Many children have invoked me, and I have hardly been here at home." "That makes me very happy. That is precisely why I came with such urgency. I wanted to know if any child from the human world still invokes you." "There's only one of them, but he doesn't do it very often. Almost everyone seems to have forgotten about us," Tompi said sadly. Tanri told Tompi everything that was happening, and he gladly offered to help. They only had to wait for the human world's portal to open again, and then they could take advantage of passing through it. Days passed, and finally, Tompi felt that the boy was calling him. Tanri's heart began to pound as she watched the portal begin to spark in front of them. "It's time!" the two friends exclaimed, and jumped towards the portal, where a garden from the human world immediately appeared. Tanri thanked Tompi as he headed towards the boy who invoked him. Flying out of the garden, Tanri realized that the city was not the same as the one where Eileen lived. The fairy followed her instincts and flew tirelessly for hours. Several days passed in which Tanri only stopped to rest for short moments, and she had still not yet reached the city where Eileen lived. She continued to fly for another day, until finally her instincts told her that she had arrived. The fairy slowed her flight and slowly began to drop down, going through streets and avenues, visiting playgrounds and gardens, until finally she recognized the window of Eileen's bedroom. The fairy flew up to the window with her heart pounding, and through the window she saw Eileen flying down in her bed. Tanri was so glad to see her that she flew in quickly, but she noticed that something was wrong. Eileen trembled, her eyes were closed tight, and her body gave off a lot of heat. "My girl, you are very ill," Tanri thought, as a tear rolled down her cheek. So that's what happened. Eileen was ill, and that is why she had not been able to use the magic book. Tanri approached the bed, and placing her small hands on the girl's forehead, she transmitted a little of her power to her, just a little, enough to take that disease away. Instantly, Eileen's temperature went down, just enough to make her start to feel better. She stopped shivering and slowly opened her eyes. The first thing she saw was Tanri. The girl's heart leapt with joy as Tanri laughed with teary eyes. "I missed you, little friend," Eileen exclaimed. "Me too, my girl." Tanri flew to Eileen's chest, and they hugged each other joyfully. "How did you get here?" the girl asked. "A good friend of mine allowed me to enter through his portal. I had to know if you were okay." "Did you do all that just to come see me?" "That's right, my friend." Eileen began to cry with happiness. This gesture meant a lot to her. And after that, Tanri hardly ever left Eileen. Every night the girl called her, even when she was sick. Together they spent beautiful moments, always telling stories, reading books, or sometimes during the day, playing in the garden. Years passed, and their friendship remained true. Even when Eileen grew up, she kept using the magic book to call her friend. Eileen married a good man who loved her very much. When they had children, as they grew, Eileen told them about the wonderful magical world, and she taught them how wonderful it was to call the kind creatures of that place. Eileen's daughter was the one who spent the most time with the book. She loved music, so from time to time, Tanri would bring one of her elf friends to play some of the magical instruments to make the hearts of Eileen's family happy. Being kind to whoever needs us without experiencing anything in return is something incredibly wonderful. The world where fairies live is a place where we can all go using the power of our imagination. Everything is possible if you believe. The end.